Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Just thought finally going to get around to doing those Q&As like I promised. Sorry, it's been a bit of a hectic week, so I haven't got to them yet. I'm going to have to do them in two parts because part one, there's so many questions. Some of them overlap, so I'll give obviously my best opinion where I can. And remember, these aren't law; these are basically from what my best guess is, I suppose, from being around the team and being around Grossi and them for a while. So, yeah, let's get right into it, and we'll go straight into the questions. And yeah, give you some answers there. Please let me know what you think, and if you think this segment works. If it does, we'll do some more of these. But it's always good to yeah, give some feedback and try and interact as well. Of course, if you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button. And also, if you can, yeah, just keep look out for the other videos. There's lots of other videos coming on the site. We've got a huge season ahead, and so hopefully there'll be quite a bit to talk about. So let's get cracking. I'll get straight on to we'll do this the first sort of 11 questions into one video, and I'll return a bit later today with the second video of the other 11 questions as well. So let's hit the ground running, and we'll start with the first question. I'm not going to read the usernames. You can see them on the screen there. First question. Hey, Brendan, are the Boks really going to pass on Tyrone Green? Well, interesting question because yeah, Tyrone Green is definitely a player that I think has earned a look by the Springboks. I think he's done exceptionally well. He's playing great rugby for Harlequins and really was came through their system and was great under 20s. But I think the problem there that they have is exactly the issue in terms of the amount of talent they have at the moment at their disposal. Where do you find places for them? Villiers Leroux's still around. He's heading towards 100 tests, and he's going to probably be around at least for the rest of the season. Then they've got Damian Willems, who's injured, double World Cup winner at the age of 26. They're not likely to throw him away. You've got Sasha Feinberg Mngumazulu, who's come through now and is a rising star who can play 10, 12, and 15, and his versatility counts in his favour. You've got Apelele Fassi who's coming through, and you've got Kieran Horn, who's done pretty well at the Lions as well, and he's also got a test cap now. So that's his competition. If you look at the wingers, because he can also play wing, obviously, and played wing for the S under 20s, you look at the likes of Cheslin Colby, Kurt Arendse, Edward van der Merwe, and I suppose it's a real subjective debate whether he's better than those guys. I think in general the Boks try and sort of reward locally based stars first before they reward overseas based stars. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, yeah, there's a lot of talent going in there. So it's unfortunate for Tyrant. And I mean, I would love to see him in a Springbok jersey, but I just think at the moment there's just so much other talent that it makes it very hard to pick him at the moment above some of these other guys. Okay, question two. Two areas I feel the Boks need to dramatically and quickly tighten up. One, making avoidable, plain, dumb, stupid errors resulting in penalties and lost possession. And two, the defence MIA on too many occasions. Where was the typical much loved brick shithouse defence gone to? These things are obvious and don't seem to be put right. Sean, I know you're a regular in this channel and you watch a lot and you interact quite a bit here on the comments. But first of all, I think making avoidable, plain, dumb, stupid errors, as you put it, is something that every coach strives for. Every coach tries to get that out of the way. Not many do. Players do tend to make errors. It's a high-paced game. It's a physical game. These things do happen. Conditions also play a part. In Bloemfontein, though, I think there's a lot of over-eagerness, and there was a lot of that sort of came into play as well. So I think those errors were regrettable. And when you're playing at opposition that you think is a bit lesser, you tend to try things you probably wouldn't. So I think it's a work in progress. I don't think those errors are hugely ineffective. And I think you must realize this is a coaching team that's basically won 2 World Cups. You've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least on many things. Then second, where's the defence? Well, they transitioned to a new defence coach. Jerry Flannery is the new defence coach. They did have Jacques Nienaber. But if you remember back in 2018 when Jacques took over, there was a number of defensive lapses. And he says it himself. It takes 12 or 13 games for a team to get into a defensive system. So that's all I think it is they're transitioning at the moment. There are things that they need to tighten up. They will tighten up. They have in the past. And I see that probably coming back at them. So I don't think it's a major thing. I think 12, 13 games is a long time in international rugby, and hopefully they get it right sooner. But I don't think their defence is porous. I think it's been okay. They've been caught out once or twice by Ireland and against Portugal as well. But yeah, I don't think that's critical, and it should come right pretty soon. Question three: will winning all their tests through Pollard's boot prove ineffective in the Rugby Championship? I think you're probably referring to the World Cup, and yes, they did win the tests through his boot when it mattered, and they won by 1 point in all those games. That's a different thing. It's in the past. It's also a tournament rugby. It's a knockout round. You only have to win by 1 point. When you're playing in the rugby championship, there's different. Obviously, first thing you have to always win. But things like bonus points come into play as well. And the Boks have said quite publicly that under Tony Brown, they're looking to play a lot more expansively and develop their game plan. So I don't think there's going to be a thing of, I think we've already seen a huge shift away from the boot as well. I don't think the Boks are kicking as much as they used to. I think the up and under and the high ball will still be an effective weapon no matter which team you play to put you know pressure on the opposition. But I don't think the Boks are can really be described as a 10-man team anymore, and that's certainly not the path they're on at the moment. So I think the rugby championship is going to be interesting. There's three of the four teams have new coaches. The Springboks have a new coaching team, new assistant coaches. So there's a lot to be felt out, and we still don't know quite where the other teams are at the moment. It's a bit difficult to tell from the July test, so we'll know in the rugby championship. And yeah, at the end of the day, the Boks need to be good enough to win the rugby championship, and that's the bottom line. What are Flannery's defense credentials? Well, that's Jerry Flannery, obviously talking about the new Boks defense coach. He's somebody who's extremely well known to Rossi and them. He coached at Munster with them, an ex-player, ex-hooker for Ireland. Coached defense with Rossi and Jacques well, not defense there, he was the forwards coach at Munster. But he worked very closely with Rossi and Jacques Nienaber at Munster. He then moved to Harlequins. He was the defense coach. He coached a bit with Johan van Graan at Munster as well, and eventually moved on to Harlequins. So he's been part of their evolution as a defensive team as well. And he's worked with the Springboks in the lead up to the World Cup campaign. He was around the camp quite a bit in the France 2023 World Cup as well. So yeah, he's certainly somebody Rossi knows and trusts. He's somebody who's a very determined player and ex-player, and somebody who really puts everything into his defensive systems. And I think you must realize there will be some differences with Jacques Nienaber's defensive system. It's a new guy, it's a new way of handling it, it's a new coach, so there will be minute differences, but I don't think there will be major differences, and it does take a while to adjust as well. And moving on. Okay. Lee Smith, why is Cobus Rangers in the squad? He's already 34. Definitely won't make it to the World Cup. But Box must start throwing in the young players in the big games. All Blacks are doing it. Every team's got a different way of ever bringing their players into the squad, and that all probably depends on the personnel you have. To throw away double World Cup winners is not an easy thing. There's countless sides who tell you they would have them in a heartbeat if they could. So to me, it's not about throwing away players. It's about winning. There's two aspects. One, you've got to develop for the next World Cup, and two, you've got to make sure you win your test now, where you won't get as a coach to the next World Cup. So that's the one thing. I think Cobus Reinach personally has always performed exceptionally well for the Boks. He's fits into to Tony Brown's game plan like hand in glove. I think he's the type of player, him and Grant Williams especially, are the two types of scrum halves that I think really Tony Brown wants to use. And yeah, he's never had a bad game for the Springboks. So I don't quite see reason to throw him away. I know he's 34. He's still got at least a season in him. And you know what? There's some young scrum halves coming through. And to have time with an experienced scrum half like that and working with them and learning from them is huge for young players as well. And they are young players. I mean, Grant Williams is not exactly old. Jaden Hendricks is not exactly old. Morne van den Berg isn't old either. Both of them can probably all three of those can make at least another two World Cups. Faf de Klerk has probably got one more World Cup in him. But yeah, those are the four scrum halves that they had for the World Cup. So yeah, I think having a mix of experience and youth is always good. And the same across all other positions. What you find in every other position at the moment for the Boks is that there's probably one or two very experienced players, World Cup winners, and then one or two guys knocking on the door. And we'll see that carry on for the foreseeable future. Okay, so Lee has got another question here quickly. Andre Esterhuizen shouldn't have got a red card, yellow at most. Pity he's now suspended. I really rate him. Lee, to be honest, as much as we like it, that was a red card. Players, the way the framework works, the laws, you can think the law that governs head clashes is wrong, but that is the law at the moment, unfortunately. And the law says that even if it's an accidental clash, if the player is upright, as Andre Esterhuizen was in the clash, and there's a head contact, then there's foul play. And then it comes down to degree of danger, which was high according to the referee and the TMO, and then it comes down to obviously any mitigation. Now, the fact that he was upright in the tackle and the other player, Jose Luna, went straight to ground, was knocked out, and ended up in hospital. The outcome doesn't really influence what happens with the TMO, but the outcome is relevant here as well. There was no mitigation according to the match officials, so it's very easy to say there shouldn't have been a red card, but players know they've known for years now what the situation is with accidental head clashes or with head clashes. Players know if they go into the tackle upright, they could be in trouble if there's a head clash, if there's any contact with the head. So, these are things that players, they're trying to change behaviors. And unfortunately, we're going to take this one on the chin. And Andre accepted it and he accepted his ban and he will be back. Hopefully, a better player. Hopefully, you learn from this as well. So, unfortunately, that's one of those things we've got to just carry on. Other than Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu, who do you see as being the next big star for South Africa? That's an interesting one. I think we've already got a bunch of stars in the team. We've got double World Cup winners. I mean, it's hard not to have those stars, and I think those guys coming through are pretty decent as well. There's a bunch of youngsters coming through, knocking on the door at the moment. Sasha's obviously one of them. I think if you look further down the order, the likes of Jan Hendrik Wessels is rated extremely highly. Salman Murat is seen as a future Springbok captain. Cameron Honeycomb, who's not in the squad, who would probably have been if he didn't get injured in the Bulls' last game, would obviously also be one that would be close up to that. And JF Van Heerden is another one. I think there's a number of guys. Lorenzo Juries is probably the one who's in the under 20s at the moment that I think is probably going to make the biggest impact, and we're going to see him a lot. The Boogeyman is a great player, and I think he's got a huge future ahead of him. It's always difficult to say because players have to develop and they have to get the opportunities and take the opportunities. So we'll see. But I think those names, those are probably the best, closest we come to the next stars in South Africa. Okay, next one. Where is Nohamba? And Sanile Nohamba is obviously who you're talking about in the Springbok scrum half picking order. Well, is he the brightest number 9 prospects? I think a couple of things here. First of all, you got to realize the Boks already have 4 scrum halves, which they took to a World Cup, and who they sort of have invested in time and money. Those 4 have already done well, and there's no reason to drop any of them. They haven't shown. There's a 5th one who was part of their plans in the last World Cup in Herschel Yankees, although I think he's on the outer. He's dropped off the pecking order a little bit. And then you've got Morne van der Berg who's come through, and they obviously like what they see in Morne in terms of his attacking play and his basics. There's something that they see in him. Remember, the stuff we look at players is not always the stuff that the Springboks look in players. They look at several things: how he does his basics, the way he interacts in the team, the type of person he is, the type of player he is, and if a player doesn't tick all those boxes for them, he doesn't quite make it in the team. And they're in this wonderful situation where they've got a plethora of talent at the moment, where they really can pick and choose who they want. Now, Sanele Nohamba's had a great season. He was URC Player of the Season. Really did well, plays 9 and 10, and would be great for any team on the bench. But you can only think that there's probably something that they see in his game which he needs to up. I know we've seen it in the past with players like Ambrose Papier, where they've told him to fix aspects of his game. And if he doesn't do that, well, then they move on to the next player. So I think the best thing he can do is just keep on knocking. There is a pecking order, and unfortunately, he's not in it at the moment. The only way you come in from the outside is making sure that they can't ignore you. So that's the only thing. It's difficult to say what those are. The box squad hasn't really told us. Grassy hasn't really told us what the situation is, and I don't think they make really those things public either. I think it's at times we must also realize we all have our favorite players, but some of them are not going to make it into the box squad for various reasons. And while it's unfortunate, you got to back the coaches who've won, two World Cups to know what they do. So that's my take on it. I certainly think he's an exceptional rugby player, though. But there could be other reasons why he's not there as well. Andre Botha, why do we play New Zealand in Cape Town when we know most of the sport will be for the All Blacks? Well, well, first of all, you can't just exclude one part of the country because you think there's going to be too many opposition, people there. Secondly, I think I just maybe this is more anecdotal. From for the last 30 years in rugby, I think it's probably you're getting less and less of those All Black supporters. A lot less since we are the Super Rugby. We don't really see or hear from them a lot. Maybe it's different if you're living in Cape Town. I don't live in Cape Town, so but I think what happens is there's a huge hunger for a test like that in Cape Town. You can't ignore them. You've got to shift the tests around. SA Rugby take the All Blacks games to different parts. You can't always play them in one part of the season. We're not like England. We only have one national stadium. We try and move our games around for people. And when that game was announced, I think it was 170,000 people applied for tickets. So you can't tell me all of those are All Black supporters. I think there's a huge number of Springbok supporters, and by far the majority, I would reckon as well. So if there's a couple of All Black supporters that go there, or even a large section of All Black supporters, good for them. Yeah, I think I'm pretty past the whole thing about the people should support who they were. If they don't see a reason to support the Springbok team, they probably never will. So that's my take on it. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see a massive amount of All Black supporters. There'll always be them around there, and you're never going to change some people's minds. But I think, as I say, if you haven't switched your support to the Springboks by now, you probably never will. And yeah, leave them be. So that's it for part one, guys. I hope that answered some of your questions. There's a bunch more that I didn't get to, which I should get to pretty soon. I'm going to try and get to them as well. And if this works, we're going to try and do it every month, sort of answer the questions we can. And if I don't have the answers, I'll try and find out for you. So yeah, that's basically it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoy the way the segments, so they're handled and how you like to see handled and what you want to see on this channel. Throw in some suggestions there as well. It's always good to see as well. I read every single comment that comes through, so it's always good to see as well. And yeah, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. And thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And yeah, until next time. Cheers.